respond all week long. So
Do you need me to log in?
I think I just gave you a nod on one thing.
Two mics today.
Is this all we got? Yes. Just the four of us.
Do you want to lower? Oh, you don't have it lowered for you, so we get us on the camera. You too.
Aaron.
Okay.
All righty then. Well, good evening. I will like to call this meeting of the Dayton Planning Commission to order at 6 o'clock. And good evening, everybody. First item of business tonight is the presentation of the results from the community input survey. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Lawrence.
Thank you. Are you gonna put it up on screen? I know I always promise to quit coming back to these meetings so that they'll be shorter, but I was invited to come back tonight. And it's probably not going to be short, but since we're, but you know how to do stuff. Okay. So welcome, everybody. I just wanted to do a quick run through of our community input survey, focusing primarily on the areas that relate to the comprehensive plan. So for those that haven't been here before, oh, do I need? Oh, thank you. I want to start with the comprehensive plan and why we do it. And many of you have already heard this that sit on Planning Commission, but kind of how this relates to the survey and what we're doing. So we do the comprehensive plan. We review it every 5 years, and we generally revise it every 5 years, although state code only says that you have to review it. But we do that so that we can guide the community in accomplishing a coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development of the town, which will hopefully, in accordance with present and probable future needs and resources, best promote the health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, and general welfare of the residents. And also, comprehensive plan helps guide some funding decisions, and most often people have to, or something has to be in our comprehensive plan in order to get to a transportation plan, in order to get to grant funding for a lot of things. So it does serve a very important purpose, and we take it very seriously. There is a state code that describes in very much detail what needs to be included in the comp plan. And if you look at the state code, you'll see a lot of it deals with transportation planning. And we'll talk about that. Our survey didn't really ask specific questions about transportation planning, but we got some feedback on stop sign needs and speeding and things like that. But so the state code, like I said, requires us to review the comp plan every 5 years, but we need to revise it. And so, sorry, I'm doing about, oh, can you get out of that? Back to the presentation. All right, so the different components of the comp plan, we always start with a little history of Dayton, and we are updating that. I think Penny and okay. And Penny mentioned yesterday that she might have some more photos and some other stuff too, but that's I think Penny down at Rocktown History, and probably with some of Cheryl's help, have revised the history of Dayton. One of the main reasons that we do comp plan is looking at our current zoning and then looking at future land use and what's the most appropriate future land use in and around the area. Of course, we have growth areas identified by the county in certain areas that are part of the 1990 annexation plan that we will be looking at as well. There's a chapter on the natural environment, population and housing, employment and commerce. Transportation, like I said, is a biggie. Public services, including water, sewer, parks and rec, activities. Should say public safety up there. We need to make sure that's in the table of contents. And then the appendices is going to be the full community survey results. I'm going to hit the highlights tonight. We had a lot of comments, and I've kind of gone through and combined some of them, and some of them we'll just put off. The community survey that we did was open from September until last week. So about 6 months, people had the opportunity to answer the community input survey. A couple of disclaimers here. Not all the questions and comments will be presented tonight, like I said, but they will be included in the appendix to the plan. These are highlights that relate most to the comprehensive plan. Other questions and comments were obtained in this survey to provide additional feedback, such as the police department is mandated to do an annual police survey every year as part of their accreditation process. But we didn't figure people wanted to fill out 2 separate surveys this year. So we threw about 4 questions for the police department on this survey and saved ourselves some time and money. Some people, it turns out, don't know whether they live inside the town limits or not, which we get calls like that all the time, that people have a Dayton address. We did realize that there's one because they named a very specific street and address and a very specific place they went in sidewalks, and they were from Dayton, Oregon. We were like, does anybody know where 1005 Ferry Street is and connects to the Mountain View Manor? But it turns out that was in a different state. So we'll go through where we can. We don't obviously know who submitted the surveys, but we can go back and find the answer like that one, and then know what other questions that person answered so that we can take them out. But we haven't done that yet. Like I said, the survey was open for 6 months. It was advertised numerous times in and on our quarterly newsletter, business e-news, town's Facebook page and website, at events, other venues. I believe the DNR mentioned it a couple times in articles when it first went out. We had 119 responses. So this is just for the survey. This is not our demographics, but in terms of the survey, the majority of people who responded were, or not the majority, but the highest number were downtown, midtown, old town residents. 20% were identified as South Breeze residents, 17% is Willow West, 6% is Rhodes Hill, 6% outside of Dayton, and 5% on the 42 corridor, which sometimes we forget. We think of the new subdivisions and we think of the old town, and we forget sometimes that people do live in areas not there, but that's pretty reflective. We did invite people outside the town of Dayton to answer because they shop here, they recreate here, or most often they worked here. So yeah, if you could, thank you. So how long have they lived here? Look at the screen, I can't see that far. So the first line is less than a year. Most of the people who answered have been here 3 to 5 years. 6 to 10 years is the third line, 11 to 20, 21 plus, and didn't answer. So that's a pretty good mix of people and how long they've lived here. And then the age of respondents was almost half were 40 to 59 years old. 27% were 60 plus, 24% were 25 to 39, and a small percentage, 1.7%, were 18 to 24. In terms of the race, and we do these demographics just to make sure we have a cross section of the complete town. So the race of the respondents, we had 93% were Caucasian, 4% Hispanic, 3% were other. And given our demographics in town, that's not a surprise. All right, so I'm going to go through and kind of combine the chapters of the comp plan with comments that were given and some other components of the comp plan. So the first would be zoning and future land use. The comp plan will look at current zoning. We'll have a map of what's currently zoned in the town. You will look at the comp plan commission, and others will look at whether or not that's still appropriate. And I think for the most part, Dayton is small enough and been looked at that current zoning is pretty consistent with what we want. Future land use, like I said, there was an annexation plan that was put together in 1990 that made some stipulations in order for us to continue to annex. And one of those stipulations is if we go into the growth areas that are identified in that plan, we can do so by ordinance without having to go through the legal procedures and all of that. So, but we can't annex at all where it's not identified in the plan without going through a huge legal process. So we'll look at the future land use. We'll pay particular attention to the growth areas identified in that annexation plan. And the county, for the most part, and fill in here anytime you want, Brad, for the county, as with most counties, identifies the towns as the urban growth areas, places you want to see growth. You don't want sprawl all through the county. You want it to be where you already have infrastructure, where you already have the networks that you need. So that's why if you look at the county comp plan, you'll see the growth areas primarily around where there's already infrastructure in place. Is that accurate?
That's correct, ma'am.
Growth areas we've talked about. So as for the survey, we asked if respondents agreed or disagreed with the following statements about future land use. And this question was carried over from a previous survey. It's not always exactly, doesn't tell us everything that we want to know, but it gives us an idea if people in town believe that their land is appropriately zoned. So first question, the available land in town should be used for residential purposes. That was pretty well split. I'd like to see more of an agriculture use for the town. That was pretty well split. Rather than being developed land in the town should be conserved in the future. That had a pretty high majority. I think that the land in town should be used for business purposes was pretty well split. And I think that the town should extend its boundaries and annex land, and that was pretty well split. So good luck with that, everybody. Respondents were asked if they think their property is properly zoned for its current use, and 93% said yes. Let me go to the next slide and then I'll read you some of the comments. Oh, no, I'm going to go. So some of the comments that we had are that possibly annex land, but other questions need to be answered, like for what purpose? And obviously we're not just going to go do a land grab. If a developer comes in, then we would consider that. So when you look at the new subdivisions in town, those were annexed in through the annexation agreement. So Dayton West was not in town. They were able to annex through a fairly simple procedure because it was identified as a growth area. Says available land should be used for community purposes, a dog park, expanded parks, art walk, etc. Everything from a bird sanctuary. And then there was a question, do we want a town or a small town that acts like a city? Harrisonburg wants to cut out single living homes for more communal homes, not interested in this nonsense here. If we get any wind of Dayton moving in such a direction, I will sell my house and leave Dayton. Purchase land from Cooks Creek Park to Fort Harrison to extend the parkland, which would be Kugler's Farm. Need to annex the rest of my subdivision, which is High Point, and I don't know, is that in Oregon? Like I said, not everybody who answered this, it was online, so I think people sometimes ran into it when they did stuff. So regarding businesses in town, we need to be careful what businesses are encouraged. We have a nice mix of restaurant services locally owned. We should steer clear of any chain stores, chain restaurants, etc. We want Dayton to be a destination, not a quick stop. This person also mentioned that the questions aren't really the right questions, which we would agree. The town should try to grow in a way that makes sense. There should be infill development in parts of the town that are already mostly developed rather than new development in undeveloped areas. Any parts that are undeveloped, especially if forested, should remain undeveloped. Agricultural land could be annexed if the owner desires, but there should be assurances that the land can remain agricultural if it continues to be used in that way. Commercial and institutional land uses are appropriate if they're appropriately placed. If there's a new residential development, some of it must be affordable housing. It seems to me it might be it's talking about a specific property. New development, especially residential, should look more like the older parts of town. Most of Willow Rest Rhodes Hill and South Breeze look like they could be any suburb USA. And that's, I think, one of the things that have come up in the transportation plan that Krista and I have talked about is the use of the former street grid rather than cul-de-sac and cut off subdivisions. Because we do want to have that connectivity and that old traditional neighborhood design, which is one of the goals in the current plan. So we will look at things like that. Our town being small is its appeal. Please do not expand the town. If people want to be part of a larger community, they can move to Bridgewater. People who choose to live in Dayton enjoy streets and sidewalks that are not crowded. There are appropriate areas for both business and residential. Additional land will be needed. It'd be nice to have more walking trails, which I'll bring up later on. Prefer public use or business, enough residential. The town should start showing support for current businesses rather than creating other issues. We need more land in order to improve Dayton and its future. So you can see, and I'm not going to go through every one of these, but you can see that there's always going to be a dichotomy. Some people want us not to grow at all, not to have any more houses. Other people want us to grow, but keep the small town feel. I think everybody in the comments we saw wants to keep the small town feel, but how we do that, how we keep the character of the town is a challenge. Like to see a more diverse tax base. It says the town is surrounded by agricultural land, so I don't see any reason to conserve agricultural land within the town boundaries. A long-term master plan that incorporates feedback from all residents and encourages sustainable, non-sprawl, high-quality growth would be my vote. Do not want mixed use such as apartments, townhouses, and residential areas. Says just don't develop it into Section 8 housing or more apartments. We don't need them to keep Dayton clean. And there are some housing discrimination laws in some other areas. We can't certainly put in a comp plan that we're not going to allow affordable housing in Dayton. I think the land values, though, are not conducive to that right now. All right, let's see. We're going to move on unless, does anybody have any questions about the future land use section?
Well, I think when you were talking, you kind of hit on it. In that you do see that grid thing. So maybe the thought is people are thinking, even though maybe you can't grow, you might can't do this. What do you do with what you got? You know, how do you maintain streets? How do you maintain signage? And
We're gonna.
Whatever your goal for growth is, how do you get there? Knowing that it's kind of a mix across.
Right. And we're
a mix. It's not like it's strong.
Right. We're going to get to the services and things like that and the amenities in town.
They were thinking is that, you have a lot of opportunity with what you got. Maybe we make sure that's all short up before we move on to other areas.
Yeah, and I think we have talked about some infill development too. There's actually a few lots still left in town, more than you probably think are in town. The lot on 42 that you're talking about north of town, that has some issues with water and sewer being on the other side of 42 and the creek going through the property. We have talked to several developers about that property. I think we're talking to some. Most of them that call us are not experienced and aren't aware of all the issues until they call us. The next chapter would be natural environment. This will give you some background on the floodplains. We'll have the floodplain map, and there's not a lot in the town of Dayton. It's primarily along the creek that you'll see that. We'll look at soils. The county spends a lot of time talking about prime agricultural lands and where the soils are better and any other factors that could determine whether certain uses are appropriate. And I don't think the only comment I had, and what I did was I took the comments and some of them could fall in different categories. And I tried to summarize them here. One of the comments was, it'd be nice if we developed along Cooks Creek to be like a river walk area where we would preserve it greenway, but also allow increased access to it. Any comments on the natural environment? We don't have a lot right now. Of course, we didn't ask people a lot about the natural environment, but that will be a component of the comp plan and needs to be. Certainly, we don't want to build where it's not appropriate. So then we have population and housing. We will include the census data, which may or may not be accurate. There are some issues with the most recent census, but I think Dayton's pretty good. We don't have a university or prison or anything that skewed that a lot, but we're also reaching out to the Cooper Center at UVA, Weldon Cooper Center. They're kind of reanalyzing some of the census data. Did we get in touch with Hamilton yet? So we'll use that data. We also have a subscription, or will have a subscription to Esri, which has a lot of demographic and housing and things like that. So you'd be surprised what Esri knows about you. If you walk into a store and then you get an ad for that store on your phone within minutes, that's because they know you walked into that store and where you are. If you use your credit card somewhere, that's in somebody's database. So what's that?
As a geofence.
It's kind of creepy when you sit through a presentation, but it's very useful for us to know where people are coming from and all that good stuff. Employment and commerce. Was there any comments on population and housing? We just don't have the demographics now, and that's very heavily demographic area on there. We will have to look at the current housing stock in Dayton and see what the mix is, and you guys will set goals if you think there should be another mix in terms of either the affordability, lot size, whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't think that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And I know there's some interesting thoughts on, I think we heard from the previous section too on housing and population, it kind of dovetailing with land use. But I think part of that will be just kind of looking at internal stock, your existing inventory, and seeing if there's any adaptive reuse opportunities too, and what that might look like for zoning. Some of the historic buildings, if they change hands or that type of thing. And I'm thinking on College Street in particular. I was just saying if you're paying attention there too. But I mean, yeah, places like that where, there's that opportunity for some transition.
And so one of the other things that's tough with Dayton, and we've seen it as we're going through the long range transportation planning with the PDC, is that if we don't annex, we have very few places to grow. And so, but if we did annex, then that would change our population estimates. So we're going to estimate 10 years out. The last one's estimated 10 years out. And we'll get that again from some reliable sources, but it really depends on whether we stay our size or not, because we know how many lots pretty much are still available in the subdivisions and some of the infill lots. And of course, there's one large lot of agricultural use here, but we don't believe it's going to sell and be developed in the next 10 years. So anyway, so we will also estimate that again, and I think we'll probably use Weldon Cooper formula for that. And we'll just make some assumptions. So employment and commerce, we'll include business license information and other data for our background work. There were several slides related to development. Again, some of these crossed over different sections of the comp plan, but we're going to summarize them here. So the first question was, do respondents believe that the town should be spending time and money promoting the development of the downtown area? And the majority strongly agreed or agreed. Some were unsure and some strongly disagreed or disagreed. But the comments varied widely. So there's comments that say the town, I think most of the comments, and I didn't tabulate them all. Let me see where I am here, were things like we should get the power lines out of downtown, we should replace the sidewalks and all that, and that's the town infrastructure stuff, and that the businesses should be responsible for theirs. There were some comments about houses need a fresh coat of paint, and houses and businesses need to keep their properties up and stuff like that. That's not something, I mean, in terms of the comp plan, what we can look at is maybe downtown redevelopment, and we are looking at a planning grant to look at how to redevelop downtown infrastructure wise, sidewalks, street lights, power lines, that kind of stuff. But there is a mix. So, And then there were some people who were adamantly opposed to the town spending money on anything other than the infrastructure down there. So, but we'll get into some of the business things as well. Do respondents think that the town should make a greater additional effort to attract tourists to local business? That was just over half said yes, about a quarter said no, and another quarter were unsure. And I think you'll find that with a lot of things. There are things we know that people don't know what we're doing. So we're, besides a comp plan, the staff is taking this information and figuring out some more educational materials. Like there were several comments about how we need to get the bugs out of the bug park. They were old metal statues of big bugs. They were removed a year and a half ago. So some people are still holding on to that and maybe don't even realize the bugs have been gone. No, the bug sculptures that were down by Cooks Creek Park. They were, yeah. Yeah, those have been gone a long time. So I think people have in their mind certain things that's just one example. But anyway, do respondents believe that the town should be spending time and money on the preservation of the historic sites in Dayton? And that was surprisingly almost 80% strongly agree that the town should be spending time and money on the preservation of historic sites. Of course, we didn't determine what that would be, do we want to, so. And I would guess that a lot of residents and maybe some of the business owners don't know, we do have historic district designation. We have been talking about whether or not we need to update that. But anyway, so there's that. Unfortunately, we have limited information about what people are thinking we should be doing. And then we ask, what developments would respondents like to see in Dayton in the future? So this one's interesting. One is the very top, almost 65% was family restaurant, then gas station, then convenience store. Again, the convenience store goes against another comment we had about no chains and things like that, because then other, and we're not exactly sure what all of those are. Fast food, again, going against the other comments. No other developments. Antique flea market, doctor's office, home repair, nursing home, department store, and lawn care at the bottom of those lists. And then they were asked, how do they feel the town does in managing the new development? And small percentage said excellent, most were good or average. A lot were unsure. And a few fair or poor. I think that's it for, yeah. So comments, questions on the development section. And I do have more comments on that, but that were in the survey. Let me find.
Yeah, that may be one thing we can discuss or explore as we go forward is, to what level of, I guess, at what level of activity do, the residents and in turn the commission expect the town to put in actually recruiting or attracting some of these businesses? If there's, there's that, aspect of, are we glad that we're promoting downtown? Okay, to what extent do we do that? And also for, these, if we're saying, do we just say, hey, we're making permissive zoning to allow these type of businesses, or do we actually put the investment and time into, actively recruiting a few of these? And I mean, again, that's an open-ended question, but just something maybe we can kind of tackle over the next few months.
Yeah, and most of the developments, the national chains of fast food or convenience, the convenience have to be at a signalized intersection almost always. And they need a certain amount of land and a certain size building and things like that. So, and many of them are very clear on their own websites as to what their qualifications would be. The traffic count on 42 probably is not high enough for some of what people are thinking about. And then we're also, like I say, landlocked with appropriate land, that 42 that could be used for that. That's wide enough and doesn't have a creek going through it. Sorry.
I like what you said earlier. You maybe could address that here, but I agree with what you just said about the gas station. We do have one.
Mhm.
I agree with that, the gas mileage. But maybe you answer back some of these more like that was the second to the family restaurant with what you just said. There are requirements from these vendors, that won't allow us to build a gas station. Blah, 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 blah. That's sometimes, like you said, you gotta inform folks. And these are the wins, and these are the ones I know folks are strong about. but this is why we can't do it all.
Yeah.
That will go a long way.
And I think like we have talked internally, there's a newsletter and you'll see at the end of the presentation how people get their information, but we do need to do more did you know kind of things on Facebook and more education just so that people know. And whether somebody would read an article about what it takes to rezone a property. That's the other one.
119 would. I would feel like the 119 would.
All right.
But the others may not. But if for the 119, that's what we always do with the opinion survey. You put opinion survey, you always address the hot topic. And you're thinking like, you just think not charge, like, yes, they would. The ones that feel strongly.
So again, more locally owned restaurants, some of the comments, more locally owned restaurants. And I will say when we look at recruiting or looking at filling some space, which we're blessed to not have a lot of empty commercial space, but there's one restaurant that hopefully is coming in where a non-restaurant's moving out. And we do look at locally owned wherever we can, even if it's a convenience store, we would look at some of the locally owned stores. So anyway, again, I would like to see Dayton grow. Dayton needs to acquire more land and bring in new businesses such as convenience store, shopping, et cetera. And the next person said it's mostly the responsibility of the actual businesses downtown to promote their businesses and enhance what they have. The town's role should be in helping to enhance and improve shared spaces like sidewalks, moving the power lines underground. Need to expand the tax base in addition to the one large business that we have. And I think we here agree that we need a more diversified tax base, and that will show up in the economic section. More development equals more tax money needed. So that's another thing. When you do develop, you do need infrastructure to support that. Somebody said it's been adequately promoted for many years. Of course, there's the shop local and the advantages to that. Another said yes for development, but not before infrastructure needs. No parking, no room, face it, downtown doesn't have much opportunity. Development of downtown strengthens tax base and help taking destination. I mean, it's just, and these are in the order that they were typed up. So, you know, and of course we have some expertise, and Maggie, who I should have given a shout out, who did these slides in a matter of hours, took the data and made this presentation. She, you know, there's a lot of patterns in small towns that you see, and that we're no different than all the other patterns in terms of the different views that people in the community have. There's one that says the downtown area already looks fine. We don't need to spend taxpayer money to advertise downtown businesses. Let local businesses do that themselves. That said, moving power lines underground downtown in an older residential areas is a great idea. So those are the
What?
It's nice and cheap.
moving the power lines. Yeah, it's always, there's, I think unlike Harrisonburg, Dayton has a clear identity as a walkable small town that embraces agricultural heritage, and at some time it promotes exceptional quality of life for families. I've not seen any formal research, but it feels like Dayton is transitioning into a premium residential area while preserving the agricultural values that make the families feel safe and is a healthy place to grow or to live. And then it got into as more people are working remotely, we could be promoting that. There's another about businesses need to be open consistent hours. The downtown's important, but the businesses should be keeping consistent hours, operating like a real business, promoting themselves. The town can assist with staff, but shouldn't be spending money promoting only one part of Dayton. The town's done a great job in the past, but these times of free social media, I think the businesses have the opportunity now more than ever to advertise. So yes, but in moderation, we need to beautify downtown and how we look from Route 42. There were, and that'll come up in another section about enhancements to 42 as our gateway. It's a beautiful small town. It should be maintained. You get the idea. So I'm going to move on to the next section if there's no other comments on that. Transportation is the heart and soul, one of the hearts and souls of the comp plan. And I'm not going to endorse it much tonight. So The Planning District Commission has a grant and they're gonna help us with the transportation plan. It's very specific and they have staff that are specifically trained to help us do that. So we'll be relying heavily on the PDC, which has kind of changed our schedule a little bit and pushed back the timing because they have other commitments. So do you want to address that at all? Okay. So part of that is looking at current transportation systems, including roads, bicycle, pedestrian, and buggy facilities, and public transportation. So as you're looking at that, don't only consider roadways for single occupancy vehicles. Again, this will guide future grants and transportation improvements, and Bradford knows more than I do. It's not easy to get road improvement money, and it's really not easy if it doesn't start here and then get into one of the 6-year improvement plan or whatever, and then go on to smart scale. It's a long, lengthy process, and VDOT doesn't turn money around tomorrow if we applied for it. So it's really important that that's why we do the long-term transportation planning.
And yeah, I'll confirm that that sentiment. But this is exactly why we're doing this
Mhm.
exercise now, and I'm glad and thank you, Christopher, obtaining that assistance from PDC. That'll be real helpful here with their expertise and being able to take a shoulder the load. But part of it too is making sure we've got the, not only just the surface transportation, but even sidewalks and paths and that kind of thing too can be eligible for different grants too. Not only through VDOT, but other sources. I'm sure Angela and Krista can tell you, but but if we plant the seeds now, even if we're looking, I mean, this is the chance when we look long-term, we can incorporate that into the CIP, and then by having both comp plan and CIP, then that puts us in a much better position for grant funding down the line. So this is so. get
One
your
of the
dreams
things I
on the
think you'll see us push for is, and Bradford,
map.
to match the bike and buggy lane on
Mhm.
42 on Mason Street, because there's a
Yep.
lot of traffic down there. We had hoped to do a small study with the PDC, and then last year with everything else, they weren't doing those studies, but they do know that we're interested in looking at that, and it has come up in the
Yeah.
long-range transportation plan, even though the long-range transportation plan is a little bigger than those individual projects, but.
Yeah. And
Um,
VDOT's receptive too, which is even better.
So, but if there's things we want to look at for roadways, any widening, any connections, now, I've heard talk of, it would be nice if Cargill, if the road didn't go through Cargill, but around Cargill somehow and came to a different intersection kind of thing. If there's thoughts of rerouting Huffman to meet up with 42 somewhere else because of the pedestrian issues there. We're also currently talking with Cargill about the pedestrian issues and making that a little bit safer crossing. But this is where that would come up. What's that? What's that?
That's a good idea.
So, I mean, those are long-term, very expensive idea. Well, the pedestrian safety is not that expensive. It just needs a little bit more attention. It's unfortunate, as Chris was saying today, that the crosswalk between buildings is so close to the light. And so when people are turning off of 42 going up to Mosby. Yeah, I don't think that's doable for them from the initial conversations I had, but just so you know, Cargill and VDOT and the town and some other players are going to be having other conversations about making things safe there, both for pedestrians and motorists. And as we know, especially on Sundays, horse and buggies are in great, great numbers coming down there too. Oh, transportation, yes. Was there a comment or question? All right, public services. So we include a bunch of different things in there: water, sewer, refuse, law enforcement, which I added, parks and recreation, and activities. So we did ask people about the services. You can see people are pretty happy with most of the services in town. Water and sewer is up there. Refuse, it's over 90%. Yard waste. So obviously the middle top is waste management collects that. And that was stated in the survey. The refuse collection, the large waste The yard waste and the large item is the town. Police services people are happiest with. Well, no, the streets that are owned and maintained by VDOT, which is funny because we got a lot of comments about streets and I'll talk about them again in a minute. Sidewalks. Oh, sorry. Town park sidewalks and the streets. Major events are very popular. So let me go through a few other things. I thought these were all, my notes were all in order, but. So for town services, or let me go back to transportation. I forgot the comments. VDOT should do a better job planning and paving streets in order to make them more uniform. Talked about the patchwork job they've been doing lately. We are getting some streets paved here pretty soon by VDOT. Stop sign, there were several specific comments about where stop signs should be or speeding, especially Bowman and Mason Street, cut through traffic in some of the subdivisions, that kind of stuff. In terms of town services, people brought up the need for community connections, more concerts, events are wonderful in town. Probably more than any other comment was curbside recycling or cardboard recycling. And as you all know, about 3 years ago, probably we lost curbside recycling. We have been actively looking at trying to get it back. There just are no companies right now that are doing curbside services in this region that do it efficiently and effectively. There are some plants coming on in this part of the state that will recycle, but it's going to take a couple more years to get them up and running to where it would be feasible for one of the large contractors to come back and do curbside recycling the right way. Of course, people can take their recycling to any of the transfer stations or the landfill. And we are looking at putting a few boxes around town, possibly for cardboard recycling for all the businesses that toss our cardboard in the dumpsters rather than recycling. But right now, we don't know of an option. When Bridgewater added their recycling programs, they have a drop off, but it's in Bridgewater instead of having to go to the county. I did call them and they said too, it just would not be worth it for us because we would not have the volume. I don't know that the cost benefit for Bridgewater, even with their larger population, is there, but we'd have to find a lot in it. And so they're paying people to come pick up their recycling after they collect it. The days.
Subsidized. Funding right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and the market went up and down on different products at different times and stuff. So, but we are continuing to look at that, and we did hear loud and clear from the public that that's something that they want us to continue to look at. The hard water issue came up, the water pressure issues. We looked at putting in water softening in the new plant when we built it, and it was going to cost us about $4 million plus a huge amount of money for chemicals or for the system. And we'd have to raise the fees so much higher that it's really much more cost effective for people to have water softeners in their house and maintain those for what we would have to change the rates for. So just so you know, that's not, again, a comp plan issue, but just so you know. There was a comment about the need for more streetlights and streetlight maintenance. Again, an education tool. We need to let people know what to do if their streetlights out. We're getting very specific streetlights that are out. And we do patrol and report them at least once a month, but as they go out, or if they flicker and the police officer who's patrolling doesn't see them flickering at that time, then he doesn't know they're flickering. So we'll do more education on that. Need more community engagement so the town is not the only one hosting events, so nonprofits and things. So a lot of localities like Elkton has several nonprofits that do that kind of work. There was a need for preteen and teen activities that we do a lot for kids and families, but not for teenagers, which is common everywhere at churches and every town, everywhere else. So I think the parents always think the teens should have more activity, but the teens aren't going to go hang out with other people. So. Any comments, thoughts on the town service? Oh, I'm not done with the slides. What services would you most like to see provided in the future? Again, curbside recycling, additional sidewalks, walking trails, that sidewalks and walking trails and greenways all came up repeatedly. Splash park or pool, and then dog park. Yeah, there has been talk of a dog park, and so we added that to the survey this year. Additional park amenities, more community events, community center, youth activities, senior activities, increased directional community signage and others. And so one of the things that we will be giving to you next when we cover some of this is the demographics of how many youth are actually in the town and how many seniors are in the town, and whether or not an organized program would have enough people to make it work. Right now, what the town's doing is giving a shout out on Facebook to the 5 or 6 businesses in town that do organized activities. So, and they're businesses for profit, but like Braithwaite and Landscapes and Miniature, people that offer classes will start probably helping Mole Hill with their organized rides and stuff. So since we don't have a Parks and Rec department, we are trying to work so that people do know what's in town. So that's it for town services. Any other thoughts on that? Deb, is this where you had comments? Okay.
Well. Stop.
Mhm.
I don't mind doing it. It's great for anybody in this room, my heart. Down at Cherry and College, both bricks. There's something going on with the curb, because I've heard about 2 people tripping. On how the street had it built up. So do I contact VDOT? Is that a VDOT where the bricks are exposed on the street on Cherry or that's me? Okay, I'll send you an email. If we're going to get sued, it's a matter of time. I'm doing this to protect all of us here in this room and in the town. So those bricks, it is like I said, it's way before you may go around. That's where we get that corner fixed. And I'm talking about the street first, just make sure the curbs are after.
So you're talking about Cherry Street or
Cherry and
College? So,
intersects right there at that, and the bricks are exposed.
all right.
If we're gonna do walking, we gotta make sure that people can do that. And I personally do not understand why people can't use sidewalks to walk. Because when you start putting in walking trails, people bring their dogs into your yard and they don't take care of things and all that good stuff that already happens. So people use, I don't mind people walking, but just keep the dogs out of the yard. And I don't want to put the sign. I just don't want to be there. My thought is there more that we can do about the sidewalks that do take people and the walking trail that we already got and the greenway to maybe make that more consistent? How many miles is it, or how many steps? Or I think the college kids do something with Rocktown with the ducks. There's something to think of. There are college kids in the town with papers that go from building to building looking for something. Is it the ducks? And it's through Rocktown.
Geocache.
There's a geocache, but it's more than you would think. I probably think about 30 in the last 2 months.
That's some of those are nursing students who are doing looking at town issues and how older people or people with disabilities and stuff get around town. They've come in here, are there groups like 5 or 6 women usually?
No, they're kids.
I don't know. Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
Believe it or not, I'm too shy to go up to them.
no.
I don't know what you're looking at. They were in a car, 3 of them were in a car the other day, stopping close to downtown. By the time I got home, they were in the park, and they didn't go down the river and take him time. But the other kids were like groups of like 5 or 6, and I asked people, what are these kids doing in town? And they have a piece of paper and they go looking and they're checking something off. I thought it was through Rocktown.
No, ma'am, not that I'm aware. Yeah, I'm intrigued. You get, okay, you got me intrigued now. Well, if we can send them into Rocktown afterwards, then even better. There you go. I'll talk to Penny.
What comes after town services?
There is some.
Oh, future. Okay.
Interesting. Scavenger hunt.
Trying to figure out where it was.
Well, I do want to that point, Deb, appreciate that. And I think, yeah, I'm glad to see that there's an overwhelming support for the sidewalks and trails and everything. So I think Angela and Krista can mention that too, that, you know, we've talked about it in council, and I know we've mentioned it last year too, as part of the CIP was, you know, including study for a sidewalk and, you know, pedestrian plan. And so, you know, I know that'll certainly surface its way. So I guess it's a good time to try to marry that with comp plan. And I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all tapestry.
And two different sections of College Street are in the CIP. Last year, we were gonna do the section between Mill and King Street,
Mhm.
and A&J was gonna do that when they were doing Mill Street, and that didn't work out. And then we thought they were gonna do it over the winter time. We've now gotten some other bids from other companies, and I should get that by tomorrow. So we'll get that section done, and then we'll then move up to the downtown district, College Street.
Down there where we put in the new bridge, if there might be something a little different down there. 'Cause, you know, it kind of goes straight, but then you're supposed to go up Silver Lake, and I know you experienced it going up to Mobile. You know how you go across the bridge? And you're like, and people that aren't used to it, they're like looking, and they're like, do I go straight, do I curve, am I turning, who's stopping at the stop sign? Well, just put another stop sign there. You know?
Coming down the hill from out in the county
Anywhere in that intersection. A little fun.
where the new bridge is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I was told when I first came here. I talked to VDOT and they said no. And Mr. Armitrout has also asked for a stop sign, but the fear is that more people will run the stop sign and it result in more accidents than others. And that the reason they made the bridge so wide was to prevent that. But VDOT has looked at it and that's not gonna happen.
I drive just fine. It's been so long, but it-
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've done it for 35 years.
Yeah, the line is like this, the line is like this, and so, yeah, I know I'm going up the hill, but I'm like, but other people can tell it, just take a breath, like, turning and going straight. But that's-
So in terms of sidewalks, handicapped accessibility, maintenance, we had lots of comments about that needing new, especially on Thompson Street, walking paths and trails, which would be connecting places where there aren't roadways. Green space, additional green space, we had a lot of comments about that. Comment about walking from Silver Lake, a need to walk from Silver Lake to the market, walk from downtown to the market, a greenway around the lake, and then the old rail trail bed, which of course has reverted back to private ownership, so that's not doable. The rail trail that would take somebody down to Bridgewater, but we are still looking at ways to connect Dayton and Bridgewater. Somebody said number one priority should be sidewalks instead of putting money into entertainment venues, et cetera. Let's bring our streets and sidewalks up. Cooks Creek and other, the very next comment is Cooks Creek and other parks need enhancement. If there's a dog park, needs to be away from houses. Like to see downtown look more historic, new lighting, sidewalk stamp. That's what we're getting them planning grant, looking at a planning grant for. But then again, it says businesses and houses freshly painted. More internet options came up. And of course, we're getting Glow Fiber and we have a meeting with them next week. So
Seriously?
Glow Fiber is coming in about a year, probably.
Yep, we authorized that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
You
we-
must have missed those meetings. Yeah, yeah, we have an agreement with them and they're
Yep.
coming. They're working on Bridgewater, I think, first, and then moving right up here. They're also working in the other towns in the county.
Yeah, that was exciting news. They brought that to the council a few months ago, so we're excited.
Wow.
So there's some other comments about activity center. Some people love the greenway. Some people don't think we should have it. And there's other comments.
Interesting listening about the green space, and I live across from college, you know, the park. Are the parks really used a lot? You know, the way to gauge the usage of our park?
I think the most heavily used day to day is Sunset because of the playground equipment.
Because like
Cooks Creek has a lot of basketball and
Mm-hmm.
some playground, a lot of fishing.
You think with all these comments, they'd be like bombarded, nobody could ever get in. But I think that maybe it's not just small.
I think they're looking at active parks, and Dove is used for the events and concerts most often. Anyway, you get the idea on that. Future improvements. So what did respondents feel should be the focus of the Dayton future efforts? And you can make fun of that graphic all you want, because Krista and I have made fun of it. We all had different interpretations, but the idea is that
Yeah.
I've got a few.
It's funnel. It's a funnel. Yeah, there you go. We got that,
Yes,
yeah.
it does. Improved town infrastructure is at the top as always. Attract new businesses and restaurants, move high power lines from downtown. You're starting to see a theme probably. Promote local shopping and support of local businesses. Beautify downtown business area, improve town appearance along 42, and increase recreational activities and town events, emphasize preservation and recognition. And these are all in priority order, as you can see. So improve the appearance of neighborhood housing wasn't highly responsive. Increase revenue source from industry and larger businesses was not high, and increased local job opportunities was not a priority for in terms of what the town should focus our future efforts on. And again, that might be that some people don't understand that in order to pay for town infrastructure, we need jobs. And although there were several comments that people that live here don't work here, so maybe that's what some people are getting at, that they'd rather be a bedroom community. I don't know. So anyway, and they were able to pick 3, so that's why you see those. They're not saying that the lower ones aren't necessary. They're just saying those up at the top are more important. Any other comments on future improvements? I think I've read most of those comments in other sections as well. And again, the comments, for the sake of time, I'm going to quit reading every comment, but they'll be available to
Has
you.
anybody ever even on paper done a study what it would take to put that power in the ground?
I think several years ago they did. Again, we're going to apply for a grant that would do the planning. So there's a grant that you can do planning the first year with engineering costs and all of that to determine what we would need. And then you can apply for the actual implementation grant. So it's been a long time. It's not cheap. And so there's 2 options with power lines. One is to bury them, which is far more expensive than moving them behind the businesses into the alleyways and things. Neither are cheap and neither are convenient for businesses and residents while they're doing it.
Some of us are just curious.
No, and
In the town when it's somewhere, 'cause I know you're-
yeah, no, I know they talked about it. I heard about it
Probably
before.
should've did it then, but, you know, then it was- in that day, it's not hard.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
So we, like I said, asked 4 or 5 questions on public safety. This is the only response we're giving you tonight because most of them were internal to the police. But how safe do respondents feel in town? And out of 6 stars, most were 5.4, so pretty high. The comments are they want the 24/7 police services, having somebody on all the time, which we do currently. A lot of comments about controlling speed, not only on 257 in Bowman, but with tractors and farm equipment. More police visibility, continued monitoring of drug activities and nighttime activities, vandalism. Of course, some of the comments, because they were back in September, was when we were having egging for a couple of weeks, but that's taken care of. Enforcing the crosswalk laws, enforcing the leash laws and the barking dogs, and enforcing farm tags. There were a couple comments on here that we have ordinance that we don't enforce and that we should be enforcing them. So we will take that back to all the enforcement people, whether it's zoning or police. Any comments on public safety? We even had people in some of the comments, and I didn't, I'm not, like I said, I'm gonna read it, but one person told us about how her husband got a, or she, I forget which, got a speeding ticket, but the officer was very nice and very friendly. And it was really funny, like spilled her guts that I got a ticket, but hey, they were real nice to me. There were some comments about maybe offering more warnings than tickets, which is funny because we do more tickets, I think, than a lot of the other localities, but there's still a lot of complaints here about speeding. So,
You want to see speeding, just come to my house, get a glass of tea, and hang out on a Sunday morning. Buggies, trucks, people getting very mad because they've been backed up since the it's like a NASCAR.
Even on College Street, even on College Street, they
College
get
is
angry,
another one.
and they're like passing the buggies, I'm like, you're supposed to be 125.
Right.
You're probably going 15 to 20. You need to chill out. I've been honored here lately at people. Yeah, I guarantee you they're going, some people are going 50 down College Street. Give you 30.
I know they're frustrated. I'm frustrated by the time they get down to my house. they're like,
I don't know, at 9:45, the buggies in front of my house are going a whole lot faster than the ones that went by at 9:15. Church must start at 10, I'm guessing, because you can set your clock by how fast the horses are going. Quality of life, how did respondents rate the quality of life in Dayton? And that was 5.1 out of 6. And most of those comments were enforcement things, enforcing the grass ordinance and other violations such as inoperable vehicles, lots of inoperable vehicles and trash stuff around. Of course, at the same time, there's comments saying we're too hard on residents. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yes, ticket
But the
enforce
quality of
other
life,
residents, just
A
not
lot of the
residents.
comments related to the appearance of the town and such. Speaking of appearance of town and quality of life, let's keep going. What do respondents think contributes most positively to the quality of life? Community and small town atmosphere was the highest, law enforcement and safety, events and summer activities, location, playgrounds and parks, bicycle pedestrian facilities, unique historic significance, unique shops and businesses, waste collection, cost of living. This was clearly done before the housing prices and gas went up.
Right.
Restaurants and eateries, housing affordability, and others. And then moving right along again. Nope, I went too far. What did I do? Get me back to my presentation, Krista, down below. Okay. Sorry for putting the, you're getting close. All right. Yep. Any comments on quality of life? For the most part, people are happy here, I think. And they definitely want to keep that small town atmosphere.
Exactly.
And then town appearance. How do respondents rate the town's efforts in improving the overall appearance of Dayton through entranceway signs, banners, etc.? Keep in mind, we have redesigned the entranceway sign, but we don't have the money quite yet to pay for them. But anyway, excellent and good. We're about half. Average was a third, and then the others were fair or poor. 88% said that the town should continue attempts to improve the appearance of Dayton.
Okay.
I'll share that with Public Works tomorrow. Because
We don't have the money yet. Is that next year's budget?
there's some signage money in this year's budget, but that will be to finish out the grant for the wayfinding signs, and then next year would be the gateway. We're still waiting for the estimates, like I said at council the other night, to find out what the signs are going to cost so that we know how many we can buy.
I like our banners on, for a record, I like our banners better than Bridgewater. Just gonna say.
I do too.
Okay.
Yeah. And that did, the banners and the flowers and stuff did get some mentions in the comments. And then we did ask some specific questions on how people get communication from the town. You can see the majority get it from our quarterly newsletter that gets mailed right to people's house. So if you think that going electronic, which we've been offering that for at least a year and a half, that's not where people are getting it. Social media is also where people are getting information. Calling the town office and talking to town officials is a low source of information. The town website gets less than the newsletter and social media, but more than the others. Direct email from the town, and you'll see on the next slide, we do have alerts now, and we do send things out for all council meetings and big things that are coming up, but not very many people have signed up for them. We've been promoting it since we got the new website. If you're not getting the alerts, go on and subscribe on the website and you'll get it right in your email box. And then news or other outlets, sorry, DNR. Hey, you're better than getting it from the town officials. You're somewhere between town officials and direct email, or right with the direct email. So how often do you read the Dayton Discovery, the town newsletter? Most people read it every time it comes. Have you subscribed to the alerts on the town website? Clearly most haven't. Do you follow town on social media? And most that do follow the town Facebook page, then the police page, then some of the events pages. We don't do a lot on Instagram, and clearly it wouldn't matter if we did or not, probably. So we just thought that was interesting to see where people are getting in their information. We continue to post on the website, and if it's something like this meeting, if somebody subscribes, they got a separate email yesterday telling them about this meeting again, and then we also put it on Facebook. So we try to get information out, and that's for all of you that are in that industry know that there are far more channels of communication than there used to be, and everybody gets it from somewhere else. So instead of sending an ad to the newspaper like we used to do, we have to look at about 10 different ways to get the word out there in addition to sending it out. So that's basically the survey and where we're at with the comp plan so far, or why we're doing that. Any final comments on anything shock you, anything you're surprised wasn't there or is there that shouldn't be?
Not really.
Yes.
I offered myself 2 to 3 courses. Feel like that we are pretty ready into the ground. We do indeed. Talk to the resource here, and I've talked to state police. And for instance, did not show up. Crossed the road strip. I was off the road probably further than I recognized. And I had one wheel partly off, one wheel fully off. the same color as the car. And they were. given- The bus kept going up, so my question was, should I consider where enforce they can see that completing and everyone that I talk to. They are in that big hurry, they started soon, and they didn't know that. So I have tried hard to take my. When I do that, he's down on that street. And then if I can get over it. I don't mind at all. It's about pretty bad. Probably that day. Rush hour time.
That would make a good feature article, I think, in the paper.
Is there,
Yeah, that's always our, watching it for the last 15 years. You don't have a whole lot of space to go and try to make it work.
We can't ask for what.
Right,
Mhm.
you do the best you can, we see,
Well,
we see,
some do more than I do. And, you know,
we're scared for you sometimes.
some people began driving 75 years ago. That didn't make, it wasn't there. They have never, ever. They have never, ever. Where you're supposed to drive on these. Or on the highway. Never been supposed to drive. So we've got old people in for their license and go. We want to work with the community. Do our part. We- We need your help.
And I think you were the one that made the comment about 2 years ago, the police town hall about the challenge, if you can, for a minute, picture coming out of the market, needing to cross over 42 to turn left, and then to stay over there until a block up the street when you have to turn left onto Mason Street. That was a very good example, I think, for me to understand, even if there's a horse and buggy lane, you're still crossing 5 lanes of traffic once and then having to cross right back over. And I think what I hear from people is a frustration with the motorists who don't know how to drive around a buggy or behind a buggy and their impatience. I've never heard anybody in Dayton who, well, some don't like the manure in the street, but
Well, you have to bring up the school bus. That was deep dark in my soul. I thought when they put the new bridge in and the new turning lanes on 42, the buses would get off College Street, except for the ones that need come through. That didn't happen. And you take your life in your own hands. Not this talked to a previous chief, he goes, yeah, they are moving faster. They are going.
Actually, I just talked to the police chief today about doing some radar and reporting a couple buses on Westview, but they're gonna be
Yeah.
watching a little bit closer.
They're like clockwork. I
And
mean,
they need to ride.
it's
it.
just,
Once you're up, you ride.
Barreling through.
yeah,
I'm gonna take you up on that offer. And we're gonna get,
Yeah.
I haven't,
yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, and
I-
we're-
I'd
An
love
we're
to-
talking
idea to
about
kind of-
inviting somebody from the PDC to come up too.
That's
that
what I
does
was
the
thinking is-
Transportation planning.
in addition to several of us writing, also doing an article, I think you had just mentioned, but then also maybe doing some type of video, which I know that a lot of people these days, if they're much easier to go watch a video than sit down and read, which is really sad for starters. But I think if people can actually see what they go through on a daily basis, that might open up the eyes of the
Absolutely.
community a lot more. I think
Yeah.
it's a fantastic idea though for the ride along.
No,
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 no, I'm
no,
not
no,
saying
no.
that at all. I mean, it's definitely a two-way street.
You've got the buggies, the traffic, and a double yellow line, and everybody's trying to get somewhere, and it just turns. It's a dangerous situation. This guy is finally gotten frustrated. Jumps out, calls the double yellow line, what was traffic coming the other way. On a motorcycle line, so I see it all every time I get on one. And I know what you feel.
So I call her my second. She's my older mom. She's not my older. I just told her today, I can see why she was good. Just great. She's a single woman.
No.
First patient.
I feel the same.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
Sorry.
Yeah. It could certainly serve as an educational tool as well as a way to promote our, well, I mean, we talked about it, Mr. Burkholder, you know, I mean, it's a great example of going to, to VDOT and making the case too, is they're interested in considering a bike and buggy lane on Mason Street. And then you heard Ms. Lawrence mention that earlier, and I think that would be something to, this is exactly what, comp plan and CIP process will do, is be able to put that in motion. But this will speak volumes, and, even more so than any plan we'll write up. Mhm. Yep.
It stops to discharge those two school buses. Bus driver turns his bus diagonally across both lanes of the highway. Both girls have to get out.
Mm.
Squad,
Okay.
and that driver has learned that if he stops in his lane and lets those girls out, the traffic will not recognize a school bus going near the children. And so to prevent anything from happening, instead of stop, he actually 100% bus.
Mm.
So that.
Mhm. It's a good point. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
You were talking about that in change. I worked at times and flowers and that.
Yeah.
Don't tell Brandy that. Don't tell Brandy.
Mm.
I would support both Smileys and Grammys if they were both in town.
Mhm.
Okay. I think that's it for that section. Now we have the whole planning commission meeting.
We still got a
We
meeting. Yeah.
Pay you by the meeting, not by the hour.
Yeah.
Let's make a motion to change that tonight.
Yeah.
We've
all
had
right.
a few short ones. I think we're about due.
Hello,
right.
outside world, come and get me.
The staff report shouldn't take very long, but we do need to get your
Mhm.
approval to move those forward to public hearing.
All right, well, If that's it, then first we will, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the planning commission meeting on January the 20th. And then also the special called meeting of February the 14th. So has everybody looked at those minutes? Do we have anything that needs to be discussed, changed? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I will make a motion to approve both the minutes from the meeting and the special call meeting.
Very good. Can I get a second? All in favor of approval of the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are passed. Now I will give the floor to Miss Hall and Miss Lawrence, either one, if you want to do the action items for this evening.
All right, for the comprehensive plan review, basically the. I don't want to overload you guys too much. I will ask that you all review the working copy that I've sent out. And some of that's been updated, kind of look through what's been updated, see if you have changes, additional suggestions. If you important that this was, it's very lengthy, I don't know that it's all that necessary. And then all the fantastic things, great ways for doing that one. And for the next meeting going forward, we're going to, in April, we're going to talk about the natural environment goals, population housing goals, and commerce goals. We also review those sections and kind of share the about what kind of goals we're going to go forward with those. I've done some of the updating for things that make sure you all have the most up-to-date information. And just the timeline went to you all, that was revised just a little bit. Going to be a busy year, so my apologies for that, but we'll get through it. Maybe not as long as this one going forward, but it might be some long meetings. And that's all I have for comp plan, unless you have anything else that you want to talk about tonight.
No, just notice on your schedule that we are going to do the capital improvements program again officially through planning commission. So that'll be, I'll be back at that meeting, so it might be longer than Krista would like. I try, I really do try.
I think that one was April too.
Mhm.
We'll talk about that next month there. And well, we could discuss anything further tonight, either give me any direction on anything that you want to see or see. I mean, always feel free to.
So- The plan is then in April, we will really start our meeting, then we're going to start diving into that. So we're going to study on that, look over everything, get going on that. Okay.
Exciting. Yeah, schedule looks good to me.
I'm good with that.
But once you've got highlight, that's the main reason.
For what you all are going to revise and then go forward, and staff will look at it too, suggestions and help. Your guidance.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
no fun in that.
We'll help with that too. But if you all have any thoughts, comments, anything specifically want to see,
Very good.
Planning commission. Throw it back to Angela.
Sure. Did you guys all get to read the staff report on page 4? if so, I won't repeat everything. So both the sign ordinance and street light ordinance have been addressed with you a little bit before. We were directed by council to refer it to you and you referred it to staff to come up with something. So what's attached on page 5 and 6 is the proposed change to the street lights. We were trying to find something that wasn't overly complicated for the size town we have, but something that would be clearer to the developer as to what we need. So that's what resulted from that. And then page 7 and 8 is the sign ordinance. There are a couple things we need to figure out on the sign ordinance, which would be what the maximum square footage of those signs would be based on the formula. So we have 1.5 square feet a sign for every linear foot of building frontage. Right now, the maximum is 100 square feet. That's not big enough for some of the businesses with the combined signs and stuff. So I think that the largest that we came up with was 588 total square foot for one business in town. And that's probably too much. We were thinking about, didn't we say like 350 or 400 maybe? Or did we? Okay.
And just to give you all background, if you all situation that has come up with the market, there was additional signage there. Additional days, they're wanting to do another sign to let everybody know. And as the case stands now, they have a maximum square footage of 100 square feet.
Which they greatly exceed already.
They're already well over that now. They're grandfathered in before our sign ordinance of that. Also, the parcel where air corrals located. That's a very interesting one because that is one parcel that houses the air corral, what used to be birds, ice cream, water. So they far exceed the sign ordinance. And then there is a business that is going in where birds was. They have not signed yet, but when that time comes, and this is where it stands now, I would have to deny their sign request. They would have to come to you guys and town council and for special use permit. So we're trying to, those particular instances, we're trying to bring that process. So we're looking at what the maximum allowance would be.
What is the size of the one at the cheese place right now?
They do not have one. That's just something that I
Oh, okay.
found on the brief right now. But to give you an example,
When she says roof, she means the front of the building where the thing comes. So the middle part of the building says Dayton Market, and then there's two smaller triangles on either end, and they want to put one up there, right?
But based off the current Dayton Market regular sign, technically they're over anyway.
right, that sign is about 6 square feet all by himself. I think it's 96. So just to give you an idea, that sign alone would be their maximum. So what we're proposing is that we do a maximum ground sign, which can only have one big ground sign, so that we're reducing the clutter that would be right out next to the road. But then allow them to have additional signs on the building, wall signs, roof signs. So just run around and play.
So except for where there's multiple buildings on that lot, everything else is half square foot of sign area for the building based on the linear square foot of the building. But then you'll see where there's a blank down on C at the bottom, not to exceed so many square feet, and that would be per lot unless we can figure out a different way to word it.
Chris,
And we don't have to decide that tonight, but we do need to advertise, right?
Is there any way that we could get some examples and maybe just to see
right,
what else, I guess, is around town or
Mhm.
what we're looking at to give us a better idea of before we pick a number?
We can throw some photos up with measurements
Yeah.
next time.
And still use that linear, maybe that linear footprint of whatever building, and then we'll come up with something that seems fair per, so you don't have smaller building with excessive signs,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, so most of the,
or a bigger building like farmer's market where they can't have enough signs,
Mhm.
That way we
and
can
the
just
problem is
compare.
both those businesses have a digital sign, freestanding
Yes,
sign
I
at
was
the
gonna mention
road
that.
that is also included in there. So if they were just putting it on their building, it wouldn't be nearly as difficult to figure. But that's why we put the maximum on the freestanding sign. All right.
Yeah,
I like
I,
examples like Lauren said. That's right.
Yeah, I-
Go off of-
I mean, yeah, I know there's a
Not
number.
to give you all more work, I think it'd be easier if we put our eyes on.
Yeah.
Basically, what we are asking for tonight is if you are comfortable in the price ordinance and the timeline as we have them, we'd like to go ahead and advertise for a Already busy schedule, I'm sorry.
That the one that was gonna be on April 11th,
Yeah.
you're hoping?
Yeah,
Okay.
April 11th at 5:30, if everybody's available to be at that. Then I'm asking for permission to go ahead and advertise that as a public hearing. to Public comments that. And I'll. reach out to somebody. Them to come and-
I'd like to put this out there while we're discussing mine real quick. It's part of what I think we're limiting is. I also have something like, so. We're like discussing. Splashes and things.
Mhm.
Long time ago, the bank. Light on the side of the building that was right over the corner of the sun, so every time I looked out my window, that's all I could see. And I just, somebody, to be honest, with you, just flash that light down. for me. Just really bothering me. I said, yeah. It's that, and they did. It's about a half moon light splashed it down.
Mhm.
The light is best for a lot of people like to have some people or something. So it is very important.
So in A, the last sentence
So,
says that it'll be shielded, and that's
Do
what
you
it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you feel like that's sufficient then for how they have it written?
Yes, I looked at that, but what we talked about the system a little bit last time, Angela, and that's right on there. And that's, and it did it right the first time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. This, we have to add it, so many changes. We have to
Mm.
advertise it twice, and
Yep.
for advertising, it has to be fairly specific as to the changes that we're doing. Possibly.
Mhm.
Sorry, but.
Yep.
We're adding a little,
Yep.
a little pricey, so I want to make sure that we get it right. when we do it.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then everybody's available.
Yeah.
So if everybody's. Okay.
Yeah,
Any changes, concerns as written?
I was just on the lighting real quick, just to confirm, this, I know we're repealing and replacing, so is this gonna also apply to non-residential subdivisions as well, or is this strictly in the subdivision side? In other words, is it gonna apply to any commercial developments in the future as well?
We can look through it. I know the mobile home section has their own lighting.
Yeah, I was
ordinance,
just double-
But this particular section is just the subdivision for our.
Residential, right?
For residential. We can look at that and let you know.
No, I just wanted to, and I mean, I'm fine with the way it's, I was just kind of curious if that would apply in the future too.
Mhm.
Because I think this suffices for residential subdivisions. I just
Mhm.
having gone through a lighting ordinance revision not too long ago in another faraway land. I remember there's there's a lot of detail as it got to the actual like commercial site plans. And I'm just thinking as we're talking about redevelopment and future development, that might be something, but that could be another another fun project for us to take on down the line, but yeah, I'm comfortable. I think this is well done. I think it strikes a balance of trying to, be specific enough to address the issue at hand without being too prescriptive and too onerous.
I do have one question. As far as, I know people were questioning the lights in the Rhodes Hill subdivision. From what I'm reading, this is gonna be for all further new subdivisions. It's not gonna affect anything that's already been.
That's correct. Rhodes Hill will be getting 3 or 4 solar lights that we've shown now to the residents as well. That The developer
Just out
will
of
put in.
curiosity.
Developer will put them in, we'll maintain them. It's not going to be a lot of light up there, but it was a good compromise. But yes, going forward.
All right, well, so think we're all good for April 11th, and if so, then I will entertain a motion that we recommend to town council that a joint public hearing be set for Monday, April 11th, for the purpose of hearing the public's comment on the amendments to our light and sign ordinance both, and then followed by a special called planning commission meeting so that we can discuss and make any more recommendations to council.
I'm just going to correct your motion that you're not making a recommendation to council to advertise this because they've already met. It's
Oh, okay,
that
sorry.
the motion is to recommend to advertise for the public hearing so that you can make a recommendation to council.
Correct.
As stated in the packet on page 4, right? Is that the motion you wanted?
That
Uh,
That one.
All right.
Okay, very good. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Awesome. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. We will have a special call meeting.
So we don't have
What's
to
that?
have,
Oh, yeah, no, you're good. You're good. And just does anybody got anything?
I have one quick question.
go
So
ahead.
we don't have to have,
Sorry.
sorry, Krista, we don't have to have the final number of the square feet before that April 11th meeting then? Okay, I just want to be sure. That's all I have, Hunter.
But then we can talk about it then at our special call meeting. Correct. Right.
mhm.
After that. Uh-huh. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we do not have any unfinished business to discuss, and with there being no new business, unless anybody has anything else. Do we have any additional public comment?
I'm definitely, 363 College Street, and anything you can do for signage for our businesses. I appreciate the conversation tonight. We do have to control signs. I'm all about that, but if there's ways we can tell our businesses how they can work within those restrictions, that does more for our development. Don't want folks talking about stuff on hanging big signs. This is people who talk. And so whatever you can do, I really appreciate the conversation tonight. So there are a couple of concerns now. I would discuss stuff about them. And so see what we can do for this. Folks do like the little signs. They don't want to be out of bounds. That's all I'm trying to do. This might help several things like. So thank you. Thank you for all you do for us.
Thank you for your
Absolutely.
input.
Yeah, I think we'll get all,
It's
I
like
think we'll get
watching
everything
my
squared
children
away.
at PA up in front of me being older adults.
Well, maybe Lauren and
I didn't want to tell you.
She was trying to be nice about it, Hunter. Thank you
I
for
was gonna
calling us
say
out.
that. Yeah, there you go.
Well, before I let you go, Aaron, I need you to make me a motion so that we can adjourn the meeting.
I will make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Very good. All
All
in
right.
favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed. Very good. Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Well,
Well done,
thank you all
team.
very
Yeah.